All right, so the final piece of preparation for our Those Dark Places for Tuesday night, the final piece of session kind of player setup is a corporate protocol paradigm or a standard operating procedure for the players. So why did I do this? Something like this, we can just start it out. They're waking up from hibernation and they're completely in the dark. The players are, all they would know is their character, their crew, roughly why we're doing this thing. But then they are instantly compartmentalized into Mother May I. You know, what should I do first, Jason? And what would be normal here, right, etc. So giving them a corporate, so the Cartan Corporation, which of course is part of the little world I've invented that employs the players, the characters. There is a checklist post long sleep. So the medical officer is awakened first, and there's a protocol for that particular person to go through. And then of course there is then the crew protocol, ship protocol, etc. Right, and it's just an itemized list of what the corporation, in order by hour, kind of what is expected of you. Right, anybody who's had a job in a corporate world may even have standard operating procedures. I'm sure military. Again, I was never in the military. My family, my father and my brother were, but there are standard operating procedures, and that's true of business practices, etc. Right, anyone with liability, general liability, and legal responsibility, there is a standard of practice that must be adhered to in a particular industry, whether you're a doctor, or dentist, personal trainer, which is what I've been for the last 15 or 20 years, right? So there's an SOP of practice generally that would aid you in your job, but also protect you from liability, right? If you do the standard operating procedure of others in the business, it's harder for them to claim that you were negligent, so to speak, right? Okay, but again, that's just an idea of. But the players don't have this, right? So in this book, it does a great job of giving you a sense of the vessel, long sleep, and kind of a paradigm of what you'll do to some degree, right? But I wanted it to be more detailed for them. I want the player characters to kind of know what the norm is. And if they know what the norm is, they can recognize the abnormal, right? If they know what the normal is, they can recognize the abnormal. They aren't wondering what makes sense, what to do next. So they'll have a kind of an idea of what the corporation tells them to do in the standard operating procedure. And then they'll have the SAM android human reference or human guide, so to speak, so they can always reference Sam. However, Sam is an android. Sam may or may not be reliable. Sam may or may not even be, after they've been asleep for a year or 6 months or whatever, who knows what condition Sam's in. But that just gives the players an idea of what's normal when they come out of long sleep by the Cartan Corporation SOP, right? So I did that because I think it's good for players to know kind of, again, what makes sense when they wake up in a science fiction protocol, right? I think that's a good idea. Something like Scott's game, Scott's from Task Force Raven from Rune Forged. This is a particular setting book for Suede Savage Worlds, as you can see here, right? This particular book gives you jargon and protocol, and it's great. It's a great. Again, I haven't seen a lot of games that do this, right? IP, games that are based on IP, everybody comes to the table understanding what they've seen in film. Alien, let's say Alien, for instance, what they've seen in Star Wars, etc. In a way, IP, our knowledge from the books we've read in Star Wars or the movies we've seen in Star Wars, in a way, that gives us a normal. What's a normal? What's an abnormal? What's expected of these players in this space, these characters in this world? Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys, right? What are they about? That's kind of inherent with IP. So when you get at something like Alien, game, it may actually have procedures in that. I'm not certain. I think the Blade Runner game provides a player resource for police procedure protocol, which I thought was a game mechanism. It's not. It's a player aid, which is genius, right? And so I've done the same thing. I've just provided the players kind of the protocol that they are, as crew members for this corporation, would go through after they wake up from hibernation, right? And then from there, they can assess what's abnormal to normal, et cetera. And it opens up the gates of gaming, right? As opposed to just waking up, from hibernation. Not what do I do? What do we do now, right? What's the norm now, right? And they could. I mean, obviously, the more nuanced or the more sophisticated a group of players with the GMR, the more they might not need this, right? So traveler vets who've been playing together for a long time, they kind of have a culture to their table, right? Well, I just want to make sure, because this may be a one-off, we may pick this up and play sporadically over the next few years, who knows? But I wanted this to have some semblance of, and I want it to be as focused and as realistic in a way as possible, right? Again, to recognize the abnormal, we have to know what the normal is, so to speak. And again, this particular setting book does this brilliantly as part of the setting guide, as part of the rules, right? What is the protocol for your character creation? What's the protocol for your unit of special ops soldiers? What's the jargon used when you communicate back and forth between each other, between headquarters, et cetera, et cetera? And this is another great example. If you don't get this, then we don't really have a sense of who you work for, who you are, and what's normal. So we can recognize what's out of play, what's out of practice, what is not part of the standard operating procedure. And I think that is so cool. And I think IP kind of does that to a degree, right? The genre to a degree. Genre gives us an idea, but it doesn't necessarily provide a guideline. So in a way, I have created that for our session, our session for this on Tuesday night. So very cool. And one of the players, of course, is the medical officer. So he will be the first to waken, and it'll be his job to first assess himself, and then assess the immediate situation on the ship, assess Sam, and then his job will be to awaken the next in line, so to speak. And then they'll have an operating procedure for ship protocol. What's the standard of practice? And I think it's so important because it sets the kind of world they're in. It sets the science fiction, and it sets that they're actually, responsible to working for the military. In this, for instance, you're working for government ops, so to speak. In this, you're working for a corporation. You have job duties, right? Just like going in, checking in, clocking into work. You should have a kind of a list of what you need to do at work, or at least understand what must be done. And then, of course, if you have initiative and you are, you can prioritize those tasks at hand, depending on what your job entails, right? Obviously, this would be 4 human beings in deep space on a mission. They're not going to be told how to accomplish the mission. They're just going to be told what the normal protocols are for getting on their feet, so they can then assess and do the job itself. And of course, anytime players would feel kind of like what to do now, instead of Mother May I, they could always pull up corporation procedures. For instance, if they were to set up if they happen to be a military security ship, for instance, well, that implies already a particular procedure, right? Our job is security, patrol the area, might be standard operating procedure, secure any non-secure locations, provide first to fire protocol, who's first to fire, et cetera. So you could just have certain protocols that make sense, and the players understand then what is normal, what isn't normal, right? So I thought it would be fun to do that, because it also puts them in this place that they're, oh yeah, right, we're employed here to do a thing. We're not Buck Rogers on adventures. We're not, and of course the players know they're not. But I mean, I think it's kind of interesting to have this sense of the ship, and a sense that there are phases in which, turn on the power, turn on the lights, right? There's a certain protocol. And of course, being employed by a corporation, their protocols will be expected to be adhered to, so to speak, right? It's, are you wearing your name tag on the left lapel? Are you wearing your name tag? That kind of thing, right? So it's kind of cool. But anyway, this was a great example of a campaign setting those kind of protocols, so players understand where they're at, who they are, how this world works, what their character's about. I am hoping to run this for our so we are now trying to rotate in every few weeks, every once a month, maybe try to rotate in different experiences as GMs and players into our Tuesday and Wednesday night rotations. So we'll be playing Symbaroum, of course, and we'll be playing Joth continually, but there'll be those Wednesdays, those odd Wednesdays we're going to try, or this odd Tuesday, we're going to give this a shot. And so I'm hoping in a month maybe, or a few weeks, depending on how we rotate out what we as a group prioritize the next play, I would love to either play in this or run this. I think Dell also owns this book, so Dell could probably run something for us, or I will. I'm still most intimidated by the jargon, right? But he does a brilliant job of giving us, what this military jargon and how it communicate between yourself, etc., and your superiors, or with your other units, etc. So cool, which puts you in the, again, I talk about immersion. Those things aid, in my opinion, toward immersion, right? I'm more immersed when my GM speaks to me as my colonel, or we get a communication missive that resembles what I've been told, right? Is how they communicate. There's not going to be colloquialism, colloquial, how do you say it? Colloquial, I can't say it. Yeah, it's not going to be just slang, military slang, yes, but in communication, it's going to be formatted, so to speak, which is very, very cool. It puts you in that place, right? It reminds you you're part of something larger. And that's what I want to do here. I didn't want the player to wake up and kind of go, well, what next? Right. And again, they could. Again, they're not. These are veterans. These are sophisticated people. They're smart people. But I think because you work for a corporation, there would be a paradigm to this. Whether they were a military ship, there would be a paradigm and a standard operating procedure. But outside of that, they're complete free agents to then go about their business and try to achieve the tasks at hand, prioritize problems and situations to get the job done, so to speak. So anyway, I think it'll be great fun because of that. Again, there aren't a lot of games that do this. I think, again, Blade Runner, I had misunderstood one of my colleagues' comments in one of the videos. I thought it was a mechanical protocol they had to go through as mechanics. It was just a player aid for what is normal police procedure, which is brilliant because it helps players understand, well, kind of what should I do investigating a crime scene, so to speak. Not everybody would know. They would feel lost. And I've often thought about this, even something like our game, Dark Age of Man. It's pseudo-historical Dark Ages, right? 850, 860 start, somewhere between 850 and 1066, with fantastical elements in a fictional Dredgewater, right? But outside of that, we define through description what the world's like, and we define through description what your character kind of does in the world, or what your character kind of is, if you use one of the pre-build kind of setups, but you can create your own. But then what is the paradigm? What's the operating procedure for a player who really doesn't know a lot about history, and a player doesn't quite, he might have seen Vikings or something, but we're not playing Vikings. He might have read a comic book, he might have seen a movie, or she, right? And they want to be a lord. Well, kind of what's the SOP? What's expected of a player to be the lord of his own manor? If they don't kind of inherently kind of understand those responsibilities, they're going to be caught off guard when I, as presenter, hit them with certain things, right? Certain demands of them in the culture, right? The king sends for your armies. He's going to meet the Vikings in the Northwest passage, right? And what does that mean to you as a player? How do you want to go about that? And yes, you're a vassal to the king, so there's some etiquette here. You could be, it could be treasonous for you to refuse. You could still, so there's this kind of joy, but at the same time can be very daunting for players, I think, and GMs, GMs who don't quite understand the history or the makeup of these social, more direct cultural and social impacts on the session. And in Dark Age of Man, we don't do a whole lot to define it any more narrow than it is, but we could have, right? We could have said, these are some of the examples of what you might be looking at if you were a bishop in a local, church, or for a local, I can't think of the name of parish, right? What would be your responsibilities, etc. And what might be a problem that's not normal for your bishop, right? What's abnormal for your bishop, what's normal for your bishop. So anyway, I thought I would talk about this because I felt it was necessary just to give the guys a sense that they belong to something, and there's a sense to what needs to be done as they come out of hypersleep, right? This ship has been on a long deep space voyage for 1.32 years, running on minimal power, minimal life support, minimal. And where do you start when you come out of hyper? What's expected of the crew, right? And a game like this does a great job of identifying normal, so you can really get into that immersive place, and you can really begin to understand what's normal, what's abnormal, what's proper etiquette, what's improper. And then, of course, when all hell breaks loose, it ramps up the real. So if we define the normal world in, say, Call of Cthulhu, it's the normal. It's 1929, Maine, Massachusetts, whatever, on the coast. It's that technology. It's that and we assume a real world, right? Everything is real. Everything that you know and lived through and have read, etc., is real. There is no magic, so to speak. There is no. And then they begin, as we create that world and say Call of Cthulhu, that realistic world. And then we present the abnormal to the characters, to the players. It's that much. It's like shining a spotlight on the pimple of the perfect model, right? So I think it's so important to create what's normal so they can recognize what's abnormal, or worse, it makes the thing a little more dangerous, right? When something is not working or something must be prioritized to be fixed to do the thing, right? So it'll be more interesting, I think, if they have a sense. But that's my take, and I think this could be done in all games, right? But I mean, what's the protocol in D&D when you're going on a dungeon crawl? Make your character, pick kind of what they're about, drop them in the party, get to know everybody. Do you guys know each other? Do you not know each other? And you're set off, and poof, there you are in front of this dungeon door. Let's go play, right? Let's go kill goblins and get treasure. That's what we're here for. Pretty simple paradigm, right? Pretty simple, right? Or I put you in a tavern in Civilization, so you have a chance to meet the barkeep, you have a chance to get some rumors, you have a chance to get some missions, so to speak, right? The traditional tavern start, and the players have a chance to interact with NPCs, and they have a chance to learn a little bit about the town they're in, etc. And then they sandbox it or run off and to take on that mission, etc. So do we need a paradigm standard of operating procedures for a traditional fantasy game? No, not really. I mean, we're warriors. We're here to make gold. We're here to do whatever we're doing. I'm a magic user trying to get, more power, right? But I think if you're playing an industrial science fiction game, and you bring a generalization of what you've seen in Alien or Outland or 2001 or whatever, that's fine, but you don't want to leave it so general they don't quite understand. Was it somebody higher ranking here? What is the normal thing for the ship? Because if not, we have it's not a conversation in gaming. It becomes a question and answer. It becomes a mother may I session, right? Which is fine. I mean, it's going to happen because players are going to have questions. This becomes very deep and sophisticated the minute the players run into the thing becomes something else. And so there will always be Q's and A's. There will always be feeling out what next, and it should be. If not, you're railroaded and there's no player agency. There's no player choice. There's no, the dilemmas are set up like dominoes and to be knocked down, right? So obviously you don't want that. You want there to be, but I don't want them to wake up in the dark on a and really, go what now, right? So I like them to have some sense of what should be normal, what their job is to do. They may or may not get it done. They may or may not need to get it done. It just depends on what the state of the ship is, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I thought I would share that. I'm really digging this prep and setup because I don't run science fiction much. I run, again, Stars Without Numbers for a few local sessions. I've run some Golgotha, which I love, the science fiction hack, Golgotha, which is a great science fiction game. I run a couple of those, but I rarely run science fiction. And so I'm really, really embracing. This is where prep becomes a joy, right? Some GMs hate prep. Prep's a pain, you know, but it's really inspiring me to think about who is Cartan Corporation, what is this identifies what you're doing and why you're doing it, but what are the details without it limiting the players, right? What is that thing? So I'm enjoying the setup and the prep for this quite a bit. So anyway, thanks for watching. Everybody out there have a great week coming up. All right, bye.